Thanks for checking out this movie review video. This is for the 1988 film Death Spa, and this is one of those films that's going to be rated two ways: as a film in the pantheon of all films, and as a so bad it's good film, because as most people would assume from the title, that's the type of film this is. Definitely one I could see myself rewatching with buddies here or there, just to, have a nice laugh at how ridiculous the film is. So, getting into it, directed by Michael Fischa, who also did My Mom's a Werewolf, Crack House, White Screech, Delta Heat, and Rice Girl, which Rice Girl nowadays looks a little questionable. Written by James Bartruff, who wrote one episode of What's Happening Now. Yes, when they tried to basically reboot What's Happening. And Mitch Paradise, who also did some writing for Remington Steele, Jake and the Fat Man, Bleacher Bums, and Hotel, just to name a few. Ken Foree is in this, obviously playing the character of Marvin. I was hoping that we would end up seeing more Ken Foree than we actually ended up seeing, because I love seeing him and stuff. He's awesome. But no, just the fact that he's in there, good enough. The film needed lots of cuts to actually receive an R rating. I'm assuming that had a lot to do with nudity, because they were very happy to jump to the nudity. I'm assuming what I watched, which was on Shudder, was the unrated, or the non-R version, probably the unrated version. If not, I'd be very interested to see what the uncut version would be, because, man, there must have been even more nudity, and potentially blood. They didn't go super hard on the blood, and that's why it kind of seems like maybe it was the edited version. I don't know. We'll see. An early draft of the script included a janitor who lived in the basement and was there to basically be a red herring. So I'm glad that got cut, just because they do throw a lot at you for this being the type of movie that it is. Like, this is a movie when you're going into it, you're just like, yes, this is going to just be like dumb fun. And then you realize that they are legitimately interested in trying to throw a bunch of story at you, and story that you don't really care about that much. We have the sentient computer idea. We have the spirit of Catherine idea. We have, I think there was, the whole, plot between Tom and Priscilla to put Michael out of business. We got that thrown in there, too, which I assume is, red herrings, but we don't need an additional one with the janitor. But there could have been some funny stuff that could have come around because of the janitor. I don't know. All right, getting into the actual film, the Star Body Health Spa sign looks horrible. It basically looks like a kid designed it and put it together, to be honest. So it is kind of weird. I understand that it's called Star Body Health Spa so that they could make some of the lights go out and it says Death Spa, which is cool. I do like that idea. It's just the actual design of it looked really odd. I don't know why anyone would think that's actually appealing as far as the business goes. It was just very weirdly done. The gym area's layout is extremely odd. It's very horribly decorated. Now, that's even keeping in mind, yes, this is the 80s. I assume it'll be very 80s looking, and there's a lot of very 80s stuff about this. Leg warmers, the music, the color palette, the hair, all that stuff. But the decoration was particularly bad. The layout in the actual gym portion was very odd, because things were really spaced out. And that's just in general in this place. Like, a lot of things were very spaced out in there, which kind of gives you the idea that they didn't have a whole lot of money for set design necessarily. Or maybe they sunk it all into, making that computer room setup look the way it did, because it looks like they probably put way more into that than they needed to. The first nude scene just really makes me want to have access to a sauna. I'm going to be honest. Nudity in films typically doesn't do a whole lot for me, unless, it's someone like Edwige Fenech or something like that, someone I'm very into. Typically, I just see it and I'm just like, okay, that's nudity, whatever. I know there are people who really love seeing it in film. I'm not one of those people. So when I saw this sauna scene, I was just like, God, I'd love to be able to use a sauna. It's been so long, and saunas can be very nice and relaxing. So that's what that scene made me think. A lot of people probably thinking different. The concept of the people in the security room being able to actually control things within the spa, I think is fun. I like that aspect of it. It makes you want there to be a different angle to the film, or at least it made me want there to be a different angle where someone was actually getting in there and messing with things, getting in there and changing things like in real time, so you could like go between the scene of someone being killed or almost being killed, and then cut between that and the person actually doing the controls in the control room. But cool concept. I actually like that. It is a little bit funny though, because it doesn't really make any sense, especially when they're like, okay, now we're cranking up the resistance on this person's exercise bike all of a sudden, so that they struggle just for fun, which, again, fun concept, but in reality it doesn't really work. That's also why, like, the scene where the diving board, the pool's diving board just, like, falls off and the woman almost gets injured, that didn't seem very realistic, because how is a computer unscrewing a bolt in a diving board? Like, those types of things. Or, like, or like the tiles that end up, like, flying off the wall in the bigger shower scene. Like, I just don't understand. I'll come back to those, though. David is one of those people who thinks that everyone is stupider than he is in comparison. Yeah, he thinks he's, like, the smartest person on the face of the earth. He treats people that way. He thinks everyone's beneath him. So it does come as a little bit of a surprise that later on in the film he is kind of trying to resist Catherine and not go whole hog into what Catherine wants to do and just, like, destroy everything and everyone. So that caught me a little bit off guard from his personality. I'm assuming they set his personality up the way they do just because then he's more of a red herring and you think, oh, maybe he is involved with this, which you would think they would want to kind of point further away from him, since he does end up being involved, since Catherine possesses his body and goes around, doing everything. Just saying. I get the concept of... Oh, I already talked about that. The diving board makes no sense. The imagery Michael keeps seeing of his wife on fire and the burning wheelchair is pretty over the top. It also comes out of nowhere. So when you first see that, you're just like, what is the story here? Like, what is going on with this? It's very random, but it does catch your interest, I will say that much. And it looks intense. Especially for this film. Like, it does not fit within the context of this film, like, intensity-wise, because otherwise it's very much, like, light and kind of like, I can't really take this seriously. But that was intense. I was like, what is going on? Gotta love a good jazzercise sequence. They throw that in there. I think a few times they have these jazzercise sequences. It wouldn't be an 80s film without it. I appreciate it. I love it. Flying tiles in the shower. Nice touch. I think it's a fun idea. I just, again, don't understand how the computer's actually doing that necessarily. But I'm sure there were people out there who were also very excited about that scene because it's a lot of women in a shower together. So, once again, I was focused on these tiles at this point. It's hard to figure out the physics of how Robert was breaking ribs when it should have actually been his arms. He was the one doing, like, I think they call it like a butterfly press, and the computer starts, like, amping up the weight on it, and then he can't do it. And apparently, because of that, it's like pushing backwards on him is the idea, when that's not actually how those things work. He would have just been sitting there like that, and he would have been fine. But then he starts, like, cracking ribs, like, through his chest. And it's, like, the side. And I'm like, that wouldn't do that. Unless it would have had to been, like, twisting him, like, kind of like this. But all it was doing was potentially, like, putting his arms back. Should have been his arms. I don't know. It's just continuity. I mean, films like this, we don't expect good continuity. But I just thought I'd mention it. Do we really need a sexual asparagus scene? Some people may say yes. I say no. I'm not into the sexual asparagus. It was just very weird when, Laura gets out of the hospital. She's having her first romantic meal with Michael, and he's, like, doing sexual things with asparagus on her mouth. And I was just like, A, do we need this? B, points for originality, because I've never seen that before in a film. So there you go. Gotta love psychometry. They go to Dr. Moray, who talks all about psychometry. He demonstrates psychometry, which definitely seems like a quack science. And, yeah, it's just kind of funny because they throw that in there, and you're like, oh, we're doing this now. Thankfully, it doesn't go super far because he ends up getting killed, and in pretty grand fashion. I did like his death scene. I'll talk a little bit more about it as I get to those events. Going to meet someone in a boiler room is never going to turn out well. Yes, referring to the woman who gets doused from acid, doused by acid from the sprinkler system, which I don't understand how that happens. Like, how is the computer able to put acid in the sprinkler system? I just don't... Like, I guess it's kind of... I was thinking maybe it's the same thing with the chlorine in the very first one where Laura gets blinded in the shower. But I don't think it would be the same because, like, okay, it makes sense that, like, chlorine would be there because there's a pool. Why is acid there? Like, that makes no sense. Like, again, it's weird. But I do like the scene. I do like the fact that, like, her body starts melting. And when Dr. Morey comes down there right before he gets killed and he comes across her body, like, how it's, like, liquefied and she's just, like, just real disgusting but still alive. That's pretty cool. That looks good. I like that. Based on the first incident, you just go with it when the acid starts coming out of the sprinkler system, basically, yes. Wouldn't David assume that Laura would tell Michael that he came over? So David acts like he's kind of trying to be sneaky when he goes over to the house, and he also acts like he may kill Laura, but then she tells Michael that David was there. But David gives her this BS that, like, Michael wanted him to come over and, like, fix his computer or something. And didn't he think, like, if he's trying to be sneaky about this, didn't he know or assume that Laura would tell Michael that he came over? Like, I don't understand. Unless he originally did intend to kill her, and that's what they were trying to get at, but he kind of, like, decided not to because that was him, like, fighting against Catherine in his body, maybe? I think maybe that's where they were trying to go with it. It's not super clear, though. Dr. Morey's death is fun, especially when his hand explodes. He pulls out a gun, and that's a great way for Catherine to take care of it. Just explode his hand. Or maybe it was a case where she exploded the gun, the bullets in the gun, and that exploded his hand. That's possible. I don't know. But that was fun. I didn't see it coming. I really like that aspect of it. I like how Priscilla doesn't even try to deny sabotaging things at the spa. Tom, her partner in crime, does try to deny it. She immediately doesn't try at all to deny it at any point and is just like, yeah, you know. And then Tom is still trying to deny it, though. And then he eventually is just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever, like he's on to it. But again, I know it was for red herring, but that's another thing. I kind of wish that was cut out along with the janitor situation. Actually, the janitor would have been more interesting than Tom and Priscilla being saboteurs. I will say that. Real quick pause for horror hydration. Thank you for the patience. I love that they somehow work in having a big party at a spa. I say that sincerely because I love party scenes, especially in 80s films. When you can get more 80s, like a party, more music, all that jazz, I like it. So I love the fact that they worked it in. I'm sure some people were just like, why are you having a party at a health spa? But hey, man, they're building community. It's about keeping people there. It's basically about creating a cult, like CrossFit, you know? So Ghost Catherine claims her second victim by just putting her hand in his face. I did not understand that one. Well, at this point, it is Catherine's ghost inside David's body, which I assume was happening the entire time. And she just, like, puts her face on, his name was Jeffrey, I believe. She just, like, throws her hand on his face, and then it's, like, insinuated that he dies that way. And then later on, like, his face is kind of, like, disfigured and stuff. But that was weird. Like, I felt like you needed to show something at that point. Like, maybe, like, put her hand on his face and then start putting her fingers actually into his face. You have some really awesome practical effects there. But then again, that may have happened, but couldn't get past the MPAA. Catherine's demand of Michael killing himself because she's lonely seems pretty fair. Yeah, especially if they had kind of a contentious marriage at the end there before she died, which is kind of the idea that you get, especially with David being pissed off, although that may be Catherine's spirit making David say that in the beginning of the film. But yeah, I mean, it makes sense that she's just like, look, I'm lonely being dead. I would like you to kill yourself, and then you can be my friend. Or my lover again, basically. Even though I'm really mad at you, really pissed off. So I like that motivation. It seems very appropriate for a film like this. I like the piece of wood in the sauna that suddenly pops through Tom's face. Goes through the back of his head, comes out the front of his face. My only issue is I wanted it focused on a little bit more, but then again, that may go to the whole MPAA rating issue with that situation. But it looked good. I didn't see it coming. I thought it was a nice touch. And then, you know, all the wood's like coming off the sauna. I did figure that Catherine was possessing David's body. Now, the reason is because of that part where they show him in his bedroom and he's kind of like yelling, like he's arguing with Catherine. That is kind of put in there to maybe think, I think it was supposed to make people think that he's not all there. But when I saw that, I'm like, oh, because we've seen like glimpses of Catherine, obviously she has some role to play in this. I think she's possessing him to some degree, or like sharing a body or something's going on there. Obviously that ended up being true. Decent enough twist. I think her name was Darla, the one who struggled with the, whose hand actually got messed up in that blender during the party. I love her struggle with the blender. It's just kind of ridiculous and over the top because that scene goes on way longer than it needed to go. I did not see that coming. I laughed, A, at the scene because it's shot in a funny way. It just looks funny. And the acting. And B, just the fact that it's kind of like comedically long and you don't need that. So I enjoy that. The gnarly looking frozen fish coming to life and killing Fletcher is my favorite. That is my favorite kill. That's my favorite moment of the film, honestly. That thing looks so funny, so gnarly. And here's the thing. What type of fish was that? It looked like a moray eel. Maybe I'm just thinking that because of Dr. Moray. But it looked like an eel. It had teeth. And I'm like, why would you have this fish there? Like, I don't know. Maybe it was going in their smoothies at this health spa. I don't get it. But regardless, we got an awesome death for Fletcher, who was barely in the film, by the way. He and his partner, like, barely matter to this film at all. But, you know, with this caliber of film, you just expect that type of stuff. The body explosion right after is is also pretty good, too. Love the body explosion scene. That one was super, super, super fun. Another one I just did not see coming, but just loved. But again, would have liked to see a little bit more of it. It's my biggest issue. And then the bursting eyeball at the very end of the film. That's a good way to end it. I think that was Catherine's body, yeah. Like the eyeball just, well, David's body, but Catherine in his body. You know what I mean. The eyeball just like, and it's just like all that nasty pus-looking stuff just being there. And then they end the film. Love it. I love the fact that's how they ended the film. Love the music. It's extreme 80s, although you would expect that because it was made in the 80s. This is yet another one of those entries in the you can't trust technology subgenre. It's not fully in that because there was a ghost aspect to it, but we are led to believe that there were actually some malfunctions of the computer system and the fact that David, being controlled by Catherine's spirit, was also doing a little bit of that stuff. So, just saying, can't trust technology, can't trust people primarily, but then you can't trust technology that they're using or the technology that they're creating. A lot of films like that. And the last thing I want to say about this is this would be an awesome double feature with Chopping Mall. Think about it. Very similar films, very similar feels, very similar levels of entertainment. I would love that double feature. Anyway, rating this as an overall film out of 5 stars with half stars in play, it's a 1 star. But rating it as a so bad it's good film, it is a 3 star. Thought about going 3.5, but I don't think it's quite there. I'm going 3 stars on this. Let me know your thoughts on Death Spa at this point. Go ahead and put it down in the comments. Love it, hate it in between. Give me like a sentence or two letting me know your thoughts. Why? Don't just say I like it, I don't like it, because that means nothing to me. Just give me a little bit. Like 1 or 2 sentences, totally fine. Do me a favor, hit subscribe to my channel if you haven't already. That's your best way to repay me for all this free content I'm putting out there, including this video. I really do appreciate it as well. Trying to build a nerdy horror community here, and for the most part, I've built a really cool nerdy horror community right now. Loving all the people who are interacting with the channel. The comments are amazing for the most part. And yeah, join. Have fun with us, because I keep things very positive. I try to. Even when it's a film that's not good, like I try and keep it a bit upbeat and positive. But also hit the notification bell button, because that way you'll know when I'm putting up new videos, which I'm doing 3 to 4 a week at this point. Usually 4, sometimes just 3, based off Shudder releases or not releases. But yeah, regardless, thank you so much for checking out this movie review video, and until next time, keep it brutal.